Tony, I had to cut you off there, but you're making a point about how your members really want to be part of the solution, and they have been moving to other products. How's that going?
Many have even before the pandemic, when the word in the street was that black straws are not efficient and do not do the job to the environmental reasons. And many what we might call leaders in the industry have moved forward, but there are only a few of how many businesses operate in the food service and in the hotel sector. We are there to embrace and support environmental practices. Why not? But this has moved too fast. There are a lot of risks here because Canada is the first jurisdiction among other peers that is doing it. And being the first in this type of a massive change will hurt many businesses in this case and consumers because they'll pay more. Some analysis I was doing, some research I was doing some time ago, is going to cost about $5 more for every consumer with this change in a time that inflation is at its worst we've seen in many years.
Yeah, Peter, I want to turn to that point that Tony's just made.
Mhm.
And I think you made a similar point about the false economy of this. That you know, uh, you're going from a cheap product that can be made relatively efficiently to other products that are trying to replace it that might have more of an impact on the environment. Can you elaborate on that, Peter?
Sure. Well, beside Tony's point that they're more expensive, when you replace plastic cutlery with a wooden wooden knife or a plastic bag with a paper bag and plastic takeout trays with some sort of fiber, they're not only more expensive, but according to the government's own research, they have a more significant environmental impact because you're talking about generally making paper, cutting down trees. There's all sorts of water effects on those. There's a big issue is the fact that replacements are much heavier. A paper bag weighs almost 7 times more than a plastic bag, so those have to be shipped around. I was talking to one plastic bag manufacturer in my story, and he says, he can get 2.3 million plastic bags on one transport truck, 7 or 8 transport trucks to move the same number of paper bags. So that's another environmental impact that gets overlooked. And as I said, you go through the federal government's own analysis, and they admit that making the replacement products is going to be worse for the environment than making the plastic products, what's called the upstream implications. And then if I could just jump to the downstream, again, the government's own analysis admits that garbage is going to go up because of this, because plastic bags and stuff, they're really light, and garbage expenses are proportionate to weight. So they're saying we're going to save about 1.6 million tons of plastic garbage, but we're going to create 3.2 million more tons of paper garbage. So again, the government's own results show that they're going to double the amount of garbage as compared to what they're saving. So it doesn't make any sense at all. It's a profoundly anti-environmental policy for this tiny benefit about a little less plastic garbage in the oceans.
Peter, we've got about a minute before the break,
Mhm.
but is this really a proxy fight against oil and gas? Is this what this is all about?
I think at the core, no one is going to come out and say it, but plastic is sort of fossil fuels made solid, right? The plastic resin industry comes from the petroleum industry, and yeah, you talk to Greenpeace and they talk about big oil and big plastic. It does have this kind of almost religious fervor, as I mentioned earlier. It does seem that there's this animosity that defies logic that is perhaps tied to the fact that as you said, plastics come from oil and gas, and we know oil and gas is bad, so plastics must be bad too.
Indeed, and it seems to be on very different fronts, including the fact that, and you've made this point as well, that we are seeking in Canada to ban all plastic production by 2030. Maybe we'll jump on that point after the break because that that will have serious impacts on, as you said, medical devices and other things that we kind of count on to be in our lives.
Mhm.